Hey everybody, video here for you today. And I get my ideas for videos from a lot of different places, but this one is a little bit different. I have talked about France recently and Italy recently, so I thought I'd do a video on Spain today, and I got the idea for this video watching 60 Minutes on Sunday night. They had the interview with tennis player Rafael, and he said he was from the island of Mallorca, and they showed it, and I wondered if there was ancient ruins on this island. There's ancient ruins on most of these islands in the Mediterranean and Aegean even. But right down here, this is where he's from, Mallorca, and this is Menorca over here. And then I started looking into it, and I realized Megalithomania UK has made a couple videos from Menorca, and I will leave the links for those below. But I thought this was fascinating, the history I found, and some lost history, some destroyed history on this island right here. Before sea level rise, these two islands might have even been connected. You can see here how this could have been all above water before sea level rise, whenever that occurred at its final time. But here is the island of Ibiza, and I know John Anthony West, I believe, spent a lot of time on Ibiza. But that is interesting. This might have been a peninsula way back in antiquity. But let's go down and talk about some history down here, and I have some major questions about the dating of this place. Now, I will leave a few websites below, but this one I've only looked into for about an hour or so, and I'm pretty much talking as I'm learning here. So if you want to dig into the dating or the stonework or anything that you want to add to this video, please leave it in the comment section. I am just like you folks, just learning here as I go along and talking about what I learned. But it says here, the Talaiots, and this is all new to me, and the Talaiotic ruins on this island, I think that's what you call them, but it says, explore Mallorca's archaeological heritage. They have a quote from Ansel Adams down there at the bottom. In wisdom gathered over time, I have found that every experience is a form of exploration. Ansel Adams took photos in the American West in the 19th century. It says, according to a marker, the Talaiots of Mallorca, inheritance of a 1,000-year-old architectural tradition, were built with large stone blocks without the aid of wheel for transport or for lifting materials, nor mortar to fix or consolidate the walls. And I just have big questions on the dating here, because some of these are very similar to stuff we see at very, very ancient sites like Gobekli Tepe and even on Malta. And are those ruins on Malta even dated correctly? It says, although there are few excavated Talaiots, more than 400 are still scattered throughout Mallorca. This gives us an idea of the population density around 3,000 years ago. It also highlights the importance of one of its more obvious functions, that of watchtowers from their roots. Talaiotic people could control the surrounding territory and establish effective communication between nearby settlements. And there is a map with all the ancient ruin locations. Now, there are some Roman ruins on this island, but I want to concentrate more on these, what appears to be very ancient ruins here. But just reading about this Talaiotic era here, and the pre-Talaiotic era, and the dating of these, it says the pre-Talaiotic era, from 2500 BC to 1400 BC, has not left much in the way of homestead sites, but has been liberal in leaving behind burial sites such as both natural and man-made caves, Hypogeum, as well as graveyards with dolmens, a single chamber monolithic tomb usually comprised of 2 or more vertical megaliths supporting a giant flat horizontal roof. And here you see inside of one of these Hypogeum here, these caves, natural caves that were probably carved out by man thousands of years ago. It says many of these sites predate the organized society termed as pre-Talaiotic, but are nonetheless part of this culture's history. So some of this stuff is predating the pre-Talaiotic. How far back do some of these ruins go? Well, this is a big question in my mind, but let's take a look here at some more ruins on the island. Here is a necropolis, a San Alms, I believe that is the name of this very ancient necropolis found on the island right on the shore. Here's a look at one of the many enclosures on the island. This one has some pillars still in the middle of it for whatever reason. Here is a look at a burial chamber on the island. These ruins are fairly unique. Here is a look at some more of these ruins. These appear to be pretty ancient to me. Here is an overhead look, and if I was looking at this, I'd say this might be found in ancient Turkey or Syria. And there is a look at another enclosure, different kind of stonework, seems to be in that one, but these appear to be very ancient right here. Those of you who have followed my channel know I've talked a lot about destroyed ruins, not just in ancient America, but from around the world. But here is a story, the airport that crash landed on a prehistoric ceremonial site in Palma. 5 decades have passed since a huge Talaiotic archaeological find was swept aside to make way for an airport runway on the Balearic island of Mallorca. And here is a pic of some ruins coming from about 50 years ago, and these ruins were totally destroyed and carted away. At the start of the 20th century, the remains of 100 buildings belonging to the great prehistoric ceremonial site of St. Alms were still evident, including a sanctuary, 3 tower-shaped constructions called Talaiots, a 25-meter ancient burial mound known as a tumulus with steps and circular corridors, and a man-made cave, a necropolis, and a labyrinth were still evident here. Here's the airport right here. It says the St. Alms site was chosen back in the 4th century BC. And is that the correct dating? Because it stood on the banks of a lagoon that allowed the community access to the Mediterranean, but which dried up between the 19th and 20th centuries. Some years later, between 1959 and 1964, the site was excavated. And it says, on April 25th, 1963, it was declared a historic artistic monument, affording it the highest possible level of protection, on par with the Gothic cathedral or a Roman aqueduct. So this place was declared a very important place, and then they hauled it away. It says in 1964, only 10 of these were still apparent, and in 1971, they were reduced to one remaining piece of evidence from an ancient civilization that archaeologists were able to save, the sanctuary. And here you see, I believe these blocks are numbered, and they may have been moved to another site. I'm just not positive on that. But it says 5 decades have now passed since the destruction of the impressive Talaiotic site of St. Alms. And I believe I said that was the site of the necropolis there too, in that one picture I showed. So this might be right nearby. It says, which was declared a national monument in 1963. Its crime. This ancient site happened to be trespassing on the location earmarked for a runway for the San Juan airport. Despite the scientific community's objection, no mercy was shown, as historian Domingo C. Hernandez Jimenez points out in a report titled The St. Alms Archaeological Site, an example of the destruction of national heritage. And I will leave this link below if you want to read his report. Here is another closer look at the ruins with the numbers on them here. It says, Catalina Contreras, one of the archaeologists who conducted the St. Alms excavations in the 1960s, says everything was mercilessly destroyed. There were many internal complaints, but nobody listened to us. In the end, it was an empty gesture, but some soldiers arrived with some metal detectors to see if they could find any metallic element to salvage. They said they found nothing. I don't think the detectors worked very good. It was very sad. Hernandez Jimenez adds that it is unfortunate that the complex could no longer be visited. Given its importance, an attempt was made to have the second runway project modified. Despite its status as a historic artistic monument, its fate was sealed due to a total lack of interest from the local community and authorities. But here you see them hauling away little bits by bits of this historical site here. So that is the site where some ancient ruins were destroyed, but let's go over to the island of Menorca down here. And there are some amazing ruins on here, and they certainly look like some other places that we have seen. Here is one of the many ancient sites on Menorca, and I was just stunned when I saw this. A huge megalith here with a stone on top, kind of like a T-shaped pillar from Gobekli Tepe. How far exactly back in time does this place go? I think it's pretty fascinating, and these ruins certainly have a similar feeling to Gobekli Tepe. Here's another pic coming from the island. And is that leaning stone part of the original construction, or was that put there later in history? But these are huge megaliths found at this site and others on the island. These are called the Talias of the Talaiotic people. But you just get the impression that these are very ancient, Are these older than 4,000 or 5,000 years old? Well, I think that's a good question to ask. Here is another website I will leave below. There's a pic of one of those megalithic stone structures, prehistoric Menorca. What is the Talaiotic culture? And I think questions need to be asked here. Was there one story put out and never really challenged as far as the dating here? It says Menorca is an archaeologist's dream, boasting an amazing 1,574 ancient sites. Out of those are the mysterious 13 Taulas, which means table, that some people compare to Stonehenge. The prehistoric people who erected them are referred to as the Talaiots, and the period is called the Talaiotic. Now, when I went to search YouTube videos, I wasn't surprised to see Megalithomania UK. Hugh has done 3 videos on these 2 islands I'm talking about today, and I will leave the link for all these videos below. But he goes inside a 1 chamber here, shows some stonework, talks about the ancient Taulas, and I will leave the link for this below. But I think this is a fascinating subject, and he made the connection to Gobekli Tepe also, and that was no surprise. So if you're interested in this, I will leave the link to 3 of Hugh's videos, sites on these 2 islands. I think the history here is very fascinating. I will leave the link to this video, Megalithic Menorca, the Egyptian Imhotep connection. And why is that stated in this video? Well, little statue of the Egyptian character Imhotep was found on the island, and the Egyptians were sailing what they called the Great Green Sea in antiquity. Here is just one of the locations that you can find on Google Earth, ancient spot here. Stonework just kind of peeking out from under the trees here and just kind of scattered all around. But the history on these 2 islands I think is very fascinating. We have maybe combined as many as 2,000 ancient sites on these 2 islands. Some of them appear very ancient. We have Hypogeums, Labyrinths they are called, necropolis. Here is one PDF I found, the Talaiotic Culture, the Balearic Islands. But if you want to look this up, this has some history here, some ancient ruins from overhead. But this was very informative. I have not even finished reading this, but some of these structures, when you look at them from overhead, they are reminiscent of what you find in the Neolithic period coming from ancient Turkey. That's just an obvious comparison that I can make, things that pop out right away. But I will leave the link for this if you want to read more into this culture, and I have just started reading about it about 2 days ago. But this was a pretty interesting article, and here is one tomb shaped like an inverted ship. Now, why would that be? This is a structure that Hugh covers in one of his videos that I will leave a link to. It says the Naveta in Tudons. This burial Naveta is in the shape of an inverted ship built with Cyclopean technique during the Bronze Age. This is just very fascinating. I have questions on the dating here, but here's one structure from overhead. I think I will wrap it up right there. The island of Menorca and Mallorca here, out here in the Mediterranean. Some pretty fascinating history, some destroyed history. That was unfortunate, but I thought I'd report on it. How else would anybody know about it? Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have a very nice day.